I was forgotten in that heavy rain. That day, I borrowed an umbrella from a passing cleaner and went to the airport to buy the nearest flight. I wanted to go anywhere, as long as there was no Liu Ruyan and Ji Boxiao. At 6 o'clock, Liu Ruyan's car returned home, and it was the servant who greeted her instead of her husband, Liu Rui. Only then did Liu Ruyan remember that she should have gone to the market to wait for me, but she forgot, because she was worried about Ji Boxiao. But it didn't matter. Liu Rui had a gentle and peaceful temperament, and would never be angry because of such a small matter. At 7 o'clock the rain stopped. It was very dark, and Liu Rui had not yet returned home. Liu Ruyan began to feel an inexplicable panic. She made 3 calls. The first was unanswered, and the second and third could no longer be connected. That heavy rain came suddenly, and the sky seemed to turn dark in an instant. I ran to the eaves of the roadside in a mess to hide from the rain, looking at the pouring rain blankly. An hour ago, Liu Ruyan asked me to pick her up, but now she was still nowhere to be seen. Fortunately, because the heavy rain temporarily interrupted the call, I originally planned to go back first, but then I thought that if she came here at this time, she wouldn't be able to find me. Until the people hiding from the rain around me were picked up one after another, the heavy rain showed no sign of stopping, and the sky was completely dark. The people who picked them up tried their best to tilt the umbrellas to the top of their heads, and cared for them carefully. I think Liu Ruyan must be like this at this moment, carefully protected by Ji Boxiao, right? The man she liked when she was young later made a mistake by accident. I heard that his married life was not happy. During the 3 months of the divorce lawsuit, Ji Boxiao's mother passed away again. Liu Ruyan was often so worried that she couldn't sleep at night and sighed. And today is the day when Ji Boxiao finally successfully divorced and returned to the country. In the morning, Liu Ruyan took a shower and changed into a new dress. The silk scarf had a simple cloud pattern. After marriage, I took care of all her food, clothing, housing, and transportation, but that silk scarf was not bought by me. The rain fell endlessly, as lively as frying beans. 2 hours had passed, and someone advised me to leave quickly. If the water got deeper and deeper, I was afraid I would be trapped here. I looked at the concerned eyes of the stranger in front of me, but my heart suddenly became quiet. "Auntie?" I smiled and waved to the passing cleaner. The newly bought seafood was exchanged for the leftovers in the auntie's hand. Seeing her so happy, I couldn't help but curl my lips. The umbrella was old but could provide shelter from the wind and rain, which was better than a lover who was late. I waded through the water out of the market, took a taxi by the side of the road, and arrived at the airport. Only then did I find that I didn't even have a place to go. I only have one grandmother left, but if I go to her, the old lady will know that I have encountered something unhappy. In the end, I randomly bought the nearest flight. I wanted to go anywhere, as long as there were no Liu Ruyan and Ji Boxiao. In the 3 years of marriage, Ji Boxiao filled my life silently like air. I didn't want to endure it anymore. When I was about to board the plane, my phone suddenly rang. The call was from Liu Ruyan. I thought about it and didn't answer. When the ringing stopped, I put her number on the blacklist. Liu Ruyan returned home at 6 o'clock. When the car stopped, only the servant came to greet her. She asked the servant, "Where is the master?" "The master hasn't come back yet." Liu Ruyan's steps stopped. She remembered that last night she suddenly said she wanted to go to the market to buy seafood. Before leaving, she told Liu Rui to pick her up and go home together. But Ji Boxiao had a little accident, and she was in a hurry to send Ji Boxiao to the hospital, so she forgot about going to the market. Liu Ruyan looked at the pouring rain outside, feeling a little guilty in her heart. Will Liu Rui be angry? But as soon as this thought emerged, Liu Ruyan smiled and shook her head. She had never seen anyone with a gentler or more generous temperament than him. He would never be angry about such a small matter, let alone it was just a rain. Liu Rui, a big man, is not so delicate that he can't go home. "Madam, I see you are soaked in the rain. You'd better go up and take a hot bath quickly." Liu Ruyan nodded. "If the master comes back, tell him I'm upstairs." She went upstairs to take a hot bath, but for some reason, she felt a little uneasy. Coming out of the bathroom, she felt a little stuffy and wanted to get some cold medicine, but couldn't find the medical box. Liu Ruyan looked at her watch. It was almost 7 o'clock, and Liu Rui hadn't come back yet. The rain outside seemed to have stopped, but the sky was darker. She took out her phone and called Liu Rui. The ringtone rang for a long time, and no one answered until it hung up by itself. Liu Ruyan frowned. This was a phenomenon that had never happened before. Liu Rui would never miss her call. Maybe it was a small accident on the road due to heavy rain and traffic jams. Liu Ruyan felt her heart tighten suddenly. She quickly made a second call, but the phone that could still be connected just now could not be connected. Her eyebrows furrowed deeper, and her face gradually became calm, but she still patiently made the third one. It was still unreachable. She held the phone for a long time and then checked it online. It turned out that in her case, she was blacklisted by the other party. Liu Ruyan suddenly laughed angrily. She felt that she should take back the sentence, that she had never seen anyone with a gentler and more generous temperament than Li Rui. When the plane landed in that strange city, it was already late at night. The signal was restored and new messages came into the mobile phone one after another. I noticed a few text messages from an unknown number. "Hello Li Rui, I am Ji Boxiao. I heard that you and Ruyan had a fight because of me and haven't gone home for a long time. I am very worried and sorry. I think it is necessary for me to explain the matter between Ruyan and me to you. She did like me, but that was when she was a child. Ruyan has always called me brother, and I also treat her as a sister. If there is a problem between you because of me, this is really not what I want to see. No one wants Ruyan to be happy more than I do. Mr. Lee, can you call Ruyan back after receiving my message? Or at least let us know you are safe?" I think it's ridiculous. If they were really worried about my safety, there were countless ways. With Liu Ruyan's family background, it's as easy as pie to find my ID information. But after I left home, the first person to find me was not the police, but Ji Boxiao. I really hate my life. Any little trouble will be known by Ji Boxiao quickly. I didn't reply, but Ji Boxiao was very persistent. He called. I pressed answer, but there was silence on the other end. After a while, a low laugh suddenly came. This was Ji Boxiao's voice. Quote, "So you are not as good as Ruyan said? You can really endure it. It took 3 years to start making a scene, Li Rui." Ji Boxiao suddenly called my name. "Since you are willing to give up your position voluntarily, I will let Ruyan give you more property." I smiled. Mr. Ji has been divorced once and has been through a difficult divorce lawsuit. I think you have a lot of experience. Then I'll trouble you. If the money is split a lot, I'll treat Mr. Ji to coffee. After saying that, I directly hung up the phone, then blacklisted the number and set all unknown calls to be intercepted. On the third day after Li Rui left home, Liu Ruyan made a call to her grandmother, who was thousands of miles away. After exchanging greetings, she tentatively mentioned, "Grandmother, Li Rui said he wanted to go back to see you a few days ago." "No need to come back, I'm fine. Don't bother with such a long way." Liu Ruyan gripped her phone. The setting red sun could be seen on the huge terrace, and her heart seemed to sink bit by bit with that sun. She knew that Li Rui only had such a relationship left, so she took it for granted that he must have gone back to his grandmother's place temporarily because of her. But he had never been there. So where has Li Rui been these days? She turned around and saw Li Rui's coat hanging on the clothes rack, clean, tidy, and neat. Only a tie fell on the sofa. Maybe he forgot to put it away when he left in a hurry. She walked over and picked up the tie. The color was very quiet, with a light firework pattern embroidered on it. Liu Ruyan couldn't help but be a little lost. Many of Li Rui's clothes had such patterns because there was a yan, smoke/firework in her name. It was not until the second call from Ji Boxiao that she recovered. "Ruyan, I just passed by your garden and saw that the flowers on the wall were all withered." Ji Boxiao's voice came clearly. "Should I let the gardener clean them up? It's not very good looking." "No need!" She refused Ji Boxiao directly for the first time. Ji Boxiao was obviously stunned. "Is Ruyan angry?" "Yes, these are the flowers Li Rui planted for you with his own hands. You must be reluctant to part with them." Ji Boxiao's voice sounded extremely lost. Liu Ruyan's heart softened again. "I didn't mean that. Brother Ji, is there still no news of Li Rui?" "No, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have come back." Ji Boxiao sighed lowly. Liu Ruyan listened to his voice and felt a little irritable for some reason. Li Rui rarely acts like this, rarely shows an aggrieved and sad expression, and rarely shows weakness. Only in the first year of marriage, she missed his birthday. He seemed very sad at that time and drank alone. At that time, it was because Ji Boxiao was divorcing his wife in a foreign land. Several brothers of his wife had a fight, and Ji Boxiao was a little injured. She was so worried that she went abroad overnight. Liu Ruyan felt inexplicably palpitation. In the 3 years of marriage, she never knew that Li Rui had such a stubborn and willful side. She walked to the bed and sat down for a long time, and finally decided to call Li Rui's best brother. The friend was very surprised, and said that he had not received his call, and Li Rui had not gone to his city. When Liu Ruyan hung up the phone, her hands were shaking, and she almost knocked over half a cup of residual tea on the table. She quickly took a tissue to wipe it. Li Rui was a bit of a clean freak. When he was at home, there was no smell in any corner of the whole house. The phone rang again, but it was a strange landline number. In the past, she would never answer such a call, but this time, she pressed answer immediately. Hello? Her voice was a little trembling. Liu Ruyan, it's me, Li Rui. For some reason, when Li Rui's familiar voice rang, Liu Ruyan's emotions suddenly became excited. Li Rui, you are not a 3-year-old child. Is running away from home such a childish thing, something that a man of your age should do? Do you know what negative impact it will have on the Liu family if it gets out? I'm sorry. Liu Ruyan gripped the phone and breathed a sigh of relief, feeling that the heavy stone in her heart was suddenly pushed away. Since you know you're wrong, come back quickly. Her tone became gentler again. Liu Ruyan, I have something else to talk to you about. What is it? I sent you something. It should have been received by now. What thing needs to be sent? Can't you just bring it back when you go home? Liu Rui was still in that gentle and peaceful tone. I'm not going home. Please sign for the express delivery. If there is no objection after reading it, please sign it. I will call you again in 2 days. This call is borrowed from someone else. Don't call again. I can't receive it. Li Rui, what do you mean? Li Rui only felt that her heart, which had just breathed a sigh of relief, suddenly rose again. Liu Ruyan, after being married to you for 3 years, I have been a little unhappy. I'm tired, so let's get a divorce. Liu Tilan didn't speak, and Li Rui didn't speak either, as if he was politely waiting for her to answer. Where are you now? That's not important. Liu Ruyan looked at the silent twilight outside the window. Li Rui, what are you making a scene about? On the other end of the phone, Li Rui didn't say another word. He seemed to laugh very lowly and then hung up the phone directly. Liu Ruyan almost subconsciously redialed immediately, but the person who answered the phone was already a strange auntie. She spoke some dialect that Liu Ruyan couldn't understand. She could only apologize and then hang up. The twilight fell heavily, and she sat there in the heavy twilight motionless. In the 3 years of marriage, Li Rui was like a cup of warm water that was always 45 degrees. He originally had a very good job, but because she was too busy with work, he gave up his career and began to take care of her wholeheartedly. He wouldn't get angry, never lost his temper, and always spoke gently and easily. Everyone liked him and praised him, so that she almost forgot that the beginning of their marriage was just a grievance between the elders, and to be able to marry her, the eldest daughter of the Liu family, with such a small favor, how could he be as generous and mindless as he appeared? Liu Ruyan turned around and walked to the dressing table, putting down the tie she had been holding in her hand. She saw her tight brows and eyes in the mirror, with a group of anger in her eyes. She usually had very few outward emotions. But now she was stirred by this little thing. Liu Ruyan quickly returned to her usual expressionless face and walked out of the main building. Downstairs, Ji Baxiao called her in the living room, but she only gave a light grunt and asked the servant to bring the package received today. Liu Ruyan picked out the letter sent by Li Rui from it, opened it expressionlessly, tore the divorce agreement into pieces, and threw it into the trash can. Ruyan, Ji Baxiao stepped forward and grabbed her arm. Li Rui should just be impulsive for a while. He has always been sensible. I think it's my fault. If I don't come back and don't trouble you, he wouldn't be sulky about these things. Liu Ruyan's voice was slightly cold. What does it have to do with you? It's his own ignorance. A big man running away from home because of such a small thing, he's not afraid that outsiders will laugh at him. Don't you take charge? Ji Baxiao forced a smile. I've heard a lot about your happy marriage abroad. Before he finished speaking, his eyes turned slightly red. Liu Ruyan sneered. Why did I marry him at the beginning? Others don't know, don't you know? Ji Baxiao looked at her blankly. Ruyan, is it really because of me? Liu Ruyan didn't answer, just lightly pulled back her arm. I have to go out. Are you going back or staying here? I'll wait for you here. You and Li Rui are in such a state. I can't sleep even if I go back. Liu Ruyan nodded, told the servant to tidy up the guest room, asked the driver to prepare the car, and left. Ji Boxia watched her leave, and then looked at the shredded divorce agreement in the trash can. He pursed his lips and slowly sat on the sofa. Why did Liu Ruyan tear up the divorce agreement? She seemed to have no intention of divorcing Li Rui at all. On the day I left, I knew that it would be as easy as pie for the eldest lady of the Liu family to find a person's whereabouts. It just depends on whether she wants to or not. So when I saw Liu Ruyan downstairs at the homestay, I was not very surprised. In the early autumn weather, she wore a light, camel-colored wool trench coat and sunglasses. She was extremely beautiful, with a slender and long figure, and every move was very eye-catching. In contrast, I looked particularly ordinary shirt and trousers, unkempt hair, cheap sneakers, carrying a supermarket shopping bag, looking really out of place with her. When I first married her, I often felt ashamed, but now I have already figured it out. Just as home-style stir-fry can never be on the table of a luxury banquet, Liu Ruyan and I were wrong from the beginning. She took off her sunglasses and looked at me indifferently. I also put down the shopping bag that strangled my hand. Liu Ruyan looked at her watch and said in a cold voice as usual, "Go pack your things, 30 minutes should be enough." "Did you sign it?" I reached out to her. "Give me the divorce agreement, and I will go back with you to go through the procedures." Liu Ruyan's thin eyes still didn't have much emotion, but her eyes darkened slightly. "Now is not suitable for publicizing the news of our divorce. Then don't make it public for now. Just get the procedures done. Li Rui, you know next week is the company's anniversary celebration. You have to attend with me." Liu Ruyan curled her lips with a hint of calculation in her smile. "You timed it very accurately. But you should be clear that I am not someone who can be easily manipulated." I didn't speak, just quietly looked at Liu Ruyan. "We once did the most intimate things between husband and wife. I used to think that only men could separate their hearts and love, but I didn't expect Liu Ruyan to do it too. In those lingering nights, she would also hook my neck and call me husband. I once thought that at least she had 1 or 2 points of affection for me. But that rain didn't soak my body, but my heart was soaked. But Liu Ruyan will never understand, because she has never loved me. If you sign the divorce, then I will attend the anniversary celebration with you next week. If the company needs any cooperation from me, I can do it." I looked at her and even smiled as gently as before. "Liu Ruyan, this has no downside for you." She looked at me deeply for a long time and finally nodded. "After the company anniversary celebration next week, I will sign." I didn't go back with Liu Ruyan, but flew back to the capital only the day before the company's anniversary celebration began. To cover up the truth and prevent gossip reporters from writing anything about the divorce rumors, I took her car from the airport back to the wedding house. When I got out of the car, Ji Boxiao greeted me like a male master. "Li Rui, you're finally back." He stepped forward and held my hand, as if he were very emotional. I looked at him indifferently. The Ji family status was not as good as the Liu family's, but it was also much better than an ordinary person like me. Ji Boxiao's suit was very decent and well-fitting, and it looked very expensive. His whole temperament was more compatible with Liu Ruyan. I didn't speak, but just pulled my hand out. Ji Boxiao wore a ring on his middle finger, but I had nothing on my hand. The wedding ring had long been taken off, and there was even a thin callus on my palm. When I first knew about Ji Boxiao's existence, I was still stupidly comparing myself to him in my heart. But now, no matter how handsome and extraordinary he is, I don't have the slightest bit of spirit in my heart. I didn't talk to him anymore, but bypassed him and walked forward with the bag. Ji Boxiao was a little embarrassed. The servant came over to pick up the master. "Let me carry it." I smiled and avoided it. The servant didn't dare to speak more, and looked at Liu Ruyan in a difficult way. "Let him be." Liu Ruyan retracted her gaze and walked toward the main building. But I didn't go back to the main building with her, but went to the guest room. "Li Rui!" Liu Ruyan finally spoke. Perhaps it was because I did this in front of a bunch of servants, which really made her and Ji Boxiao look bad. I didn't stop or socialize. I didn't have any desire to communicate with Liu Ruyan. Now I just want the anniversary celebration to end smoothly, and then our marriage can end quickly. When Liu Ruyan and I entered the banquet hall, the atmosphere was at its climax. She was beautiful and refined. and I was as gentle and considerate as before. When the women were exchanging greetings, she was close to me and would look at me from time to time with gentle eyes. I would also smile at her, but the smile from before was from the heart, and now it was a mask. I hated myself like this and also despised her like this, only hoping to end it sooner. But at the end of the dinner, a dish of raw fish was placed in front of her, and a light, fishy smell came to her nose. Liu lost her composure, got up and hurried to the bathroom to vomit. When she stood up, her eyes turned black, and she almost fell. I quickly supported her and sent her to the hospital. The doctor did a comprehensive examination and finally smiled and congratulated me with a slip. "Congratulations, your wife is pregnant, just 45 days. Liu Ruyan was also pushed back to the ward. "Husband!" She lay on the bed a little weak and called me gently. At that moment, I was suddenly a little dazed. Liu Ruyan rarely had such a gentle moment. In 3 years, it was only a few times. And in 3 years, the number of times she met Ji Boxiao was also very small. But every time she was in front of Ji Boxiao, she was as gentle as a little woman. It was just that the gentleness towards Ji Boxiao was only because he was the person she liked. And the gentleness towards me was not because of me before, and now it is probably only for the pregnancy. She grabbed my hand and the smile on the corner of her lips overflowed. "I have already sent someone to pick up grandmother. She is very happy, and even cried excitedly on the phone." I sat there, and my eye sockets turned red. For 3 years after marriage, Liu Ruyan and I haven't had a child. Grandmother was very worried about me. After all, the gap between our family and the Liu family was too big. But grandmother never knew that we didn't have a child, because Liu Ruyan said she didn't want a child, and wanted to spend a few years in a world of two first. She had always been very cautious about contraception, but why would she be like this now? After the Liu family left, the ward became quiet. "Don't mention the divorce anymore. Liu Rui, stay with me and the child, and we three will live well in the future." I looked up at her. "Liu Ruyan, don't keep this child." Liu Ruyan pursed her lips, and her eyes gradually cooled down. "Go tell grandmother yourself. You want your wife to abort the child in her belly, you want to abandon your wife and son, and you are willing to let grandmother at her age be sad for us?" Liu Ruyan was certain that I would continue to live in this marriage for the sake of not making grandmother sad. But she forgot that my grandmother has never been the kind of person who was stuck in the world. When she was young, she dared to take off her foot-binding cloth to fight against her parents, dared to break off an engagement, and run away from marriage, and ran to a relative thousands of miles away alone. After her husband became addicted to drugs, she dared to divorce neatly and secretly took away her only daughter. Now she is old, looks fragile and kind, and has no competition with the world. But I know that if grandmother knew about Liu Ruyan and me, she would definitely support all my decisions. Liu Ruyan pushed aside all the company's affairs and began to focus on nursing the fetus. She fainted at the anniversary celebration and was found to be pregnant, which had already spread like wildfire. Reporters and media blocked the hospital. On the day of discharge, the Liu family's battle to pick her up was very big. Everyone said I had a good life. With such a background, I married the eldest daughter of the Liu family, and now Liu Ruyan is pregnant again. As long as the child is born smoothly, even if the two of us divorce in the future, I will have a gold mountain. But no one knows that all this is not what I want. I would rather not have the gold mountain, as long as my wife has only me in her heart and eyes. Ji Boxiao has already left Beijing. His grandfather's side wanted him to go back for a long stay. In the car, Liu Ruyan held my hand. "I told you at the beginning that there is no romance between Ji Boxiao and me. We grew up together. When he was young, he knocked his forehead to save me, and there is still a scar now. I liked him very much when I was a child, but now I just treat him as a brother. Liu Rui, you really have no reason to care about such a small matter. But since you mind, I will pay attention in the future. I will not meet Ji Boxiao privately anymore, nor will I have any other contact." Liu Ruyan hugged my arm. "The matter stops here. After we have a child, we three will live well, okay?" In fact, I almost believed it at that time. After all, Liu Ruyan is someone I love very, very much. After all, she had my child in her belly. No matter what, that's my child, my flesh and blood. In the past few days, I have been contradictory, tangled, and shaken. Maybe at this time Liu Ruyan is pregnant. It is a chance given by God to Liu Ruyan and me. No one wants to kill their own child with their own hands, and I am no exception. But just when I was shaken, Ji Boxiao found a way to contact me. Do you know why Ruyan is pregnant? Because I decided to divorce. You must want to say that if I decide to divorce, Ruyan should be more cautious about contraception, right? Ji Boxiao laughed suddenly at this point. His laugh was a bit harsh and a bit miserable. Li Rui, an accident a few years ago, caused me to lose my fertility. If it weren't for this reason, would Ruyan compromise and marry you? So do you know how your child came? He was only lucky to come to this world to pave the way for me. To be precise, you are just a tool for us to borrow seeds. I sat there, feeling my body very cold. That kind of chill seemed to spread from the soles of my feet to my whole body in an instant. But I didn't even feel very uncomfortable, but rather an inexplicable sense of relief. I clearly perceived that all my feelings for Liu Ruyan and all my ties were completely let go so lightly. Then have you ever thought that if I listened to you and never divorce her just to not satisfy you? You are not such a character. You look gentle and generous, patient and tolerant, but you can't tolerate a grain of sand in your eyes. I suddenly smiled. Ji Boxiao, thank you for telling me these. Li Rui, don't hate me. I just love her too much. You know, love is always selfish and blind. I didn't speak and cut off the call. I stood up and walked to the window. In the garden at dusk, the wall of lotus flowers was almost completely withered. Those flowers were planted by me for Liu Ruyan the year we got married. A gust of wind blew, and the last one on the chilly branch also fell into the soil. The flowers fell, and the dream should be completely awake. Liu Ruyan and Li Rui sat together for dinner for the last time. That day, he wore a very formal light gray suit. That suit looked a bit familiar. She thought for a while before she remembered that Li Rui seemed to have worn a similar suit when they first met. At that time, she failed in her fight against the family, and Ji Boxiao went to a foreign country to get married in sadness and despair. She went to see Li Rui perfunctorily, wanting to find an excuse to send him away. But the unbearable and cruel words stopped just after a beginning. She looked at Li Rui's eyes and stopped. Li Ruyan had never seen a man who would have such a broken expression. This made her feel a little selfish and guilty for a while. Li Rui apologized to her very seriously. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were forced to see me. I'll go back and tell the elders of the family to cancel our engagement. He was very emotional, and his face was slightly red, but he didn't get angry or fight back, and even the tone of his apology was still gentle. Liu Ruyan watched him stand up and get the coffee dirty. The coffee stains stained his suit. He lowered his head to wipe it. His fingers were slender, and each one was like jade. Not knowing what to do, her heart moved slightly, thinking of the hopeless romance and the married Ji Boxiao. She actually gave birth to a kind of drift with the current. Your name is Li Rui, right? He nodded. Do you like me? He obviously fought for a while and nodded lightly. She saw his earlobes turning red and not knowing what to do. She curled her lips and smiled. Li Rui, then let's get married. There was a piece of astonishment and pressure in his eyes. But you just now, she smiled, leaning back on the seat and raising her eyebrows at him. Since childhood, she has been the most beautiful woman. Even though the skins of the Liu family's descendants were all good, she was the best. When she grew up, she was even more of a glamorous and charming person. She looked at him, raised her eyebrows, and smiled lightly, her eyes turning and charming. Just teasing you. Li Rui, don't go to my grandmother after you go back. He shook his head hurriedly. No, I won't tell on you. After saying that, his ears and neck turned red, and he didn't dare to look at her again. After the date, Li Rui sent her home and held her hand when she got out of the car. 3 months later, they were engaged, and 7 months later, she married him. And now that she has been married for 3 years, she has their child in her belly. Liu Ruyan felt a very strange emotion surging in her heart. This child was within her plan, and she should be happy. But she seemed to have other feelings besides happiness. In the past few years, she often couldn't help but think about whether the child would be a boy or a girl. Of course, it's best to be a boy, but if it's a girl who looks like Li Rui, it should be good too. But why did she want the child to look like Li Rui? Her original plan was to keep the child, and this child would call Ji Boxiao Dad in the future. Liu Ruyan felt that some things began to go out of control, but she actually didn't want to stop. She actually thought of a loss of control that night at dinner, which was made by Li Rui himself. He was in good spirits and even accompanied Li Rui to drink a little fruit wine he had brewed himself. When she was slightly tipsy, she felt that Li Rui looked exceptionally handsome, like a piece of beautiful jade, gentle and moving. Quote, "Husband, why do you look so handsome today?" "Thank you." He smiled at her with a peaceful calm in his eyes. She also smiled, stood up and walked behind him, with her hands on the armrests of his chair. Liu Ruyan lowered her head, and her nose rubbed against his thick hair. It was a shadow of intimacy. "I'll let the servant move your things back to the main building." He didn't nod, but he didn't shake his head either, just picked up the wine glass and clinked it with her again. Later they went to the garden for a walk. The moon was bright, and the stars were sparse, and a layer of withered flowers fell on the lawn. Along the way, he was very quiet. Liu Ruyan followed behind him and suddenly felt a little drunk, feeling that the scene looked very much like a peaceful and beautiful time. Later, she didn't return to the main building. She didn't remember it clearly. She slept very deeply, and for a long time. When she woke up, it was already noon the next day. She turned over and subconsciously touched the side of the bed. Li Rui! Her head was a little painful and she barely sat up. The bedroom was empty, and there was only one pillow on the big bed. He didn't come to stay last night, and Liu Ruyan didn't know at that time that not only last night, but from now on, day and night, Li Rui would never come back here. Liu Ruyan was a little lost and stood up shakily to go to the bathroom, but after walking a few steps, she suddenly felt a warm current rushing out. She lowered her head and saw 2 lines of blood winding down her legs. The blood fell on the floor and gathered into a small pool. Only then did she feel the sharp pain in her lower abdomen, like a drill to the heart. Her legs suddenly became weak, and she fell heavily on the floor. A shrill scream echoed throughout the main building. I was just picking up grandmother from the hospital. After telling her the previous plan, although she understood and accepted it, she was still a little sad and thus became ill and had been in the hospital. "Grandmother, I'm here to take you home." I stepped forward and held grandmother's hand tightly. Her body was a little hunched and her legs were bent, but her hand was still warm and powerful, as if giving me great courage to move forward. At the beginning, I told the Liu family that we didn't want any repayment. Grandmother understood the scope of a mismatch better than anyone else. Now that it has reached this point, grandmother doesn't blame anyone, just feels sorry for me. I hugged grandmother and acted spoiled. "If you feel sorry for me, then make me more egg custard. It's been a long time since I ate grandmother's egg custard. From now on, grandmother will make it for you every day." I supported grandmother, and grandmother supported me. The noon sun fell on us, and I finally felt warm. When I went downstairs, I saw Liu Ruyan's ambulance. She lay on a stretcher bed, her face very pale. I let go of grandmother's hand and slowly walked to Liu Ruyan. Liu Ruyan also weakly signaled the nurse to stop first. "Li Rui, the child is gone. Are you happy?" I saw her pale and blue face, and there was anger and pain in her eyes. "Is it painful?" "Pain is good." I smiled lightly. "Please sign after you are discharged from the hospital and go through the divorce procedures." "I will not divorce you." Liu Ruyan's voice was cold, word by word. I was a little surprised, but I didn't have too many emotions. "Then let's go to court. If you want things to get big, and the once-called good story to become a joke after dinner, I don't care." I smiled indifferently. "Then, I'll accompany you." Liu Ruyan wanted to say something else, but the doctor had already urged the nurse to quickly push her to surgery. I directly went to Mrs. Liu and didn't hide anything, nor did I add any oil or vinegar. I just repeated what Ji Boxiao said word for word. Mrs. Liu only had one Liu Ruyan. She couldn't accept the infertile Ji Boxiao back then, and became a villain who broke up the couple, and had to accept a son-in-law like me, under the pressure of the elders. For the past 3 years she has been cold and hot to me, but she has not ill-treated me. When she learned that Liu Ruyan was pregnant, she was very happy. But now the child is gone. I think even if she hates me, she will hate Ji Boxiao more. If Ji Boxiao hadn't said those things to stimulate me, I wouldn't have come to this point. Ji Boxiao wanted to restore the relationship with Liu Ruyan, but he would never get over it in his life. Ji Boxiao was right about one thing. I'm actually not a generous person at all. I'm very stingy. I hope that the person I like has only me, in her heart and eyes. I also hope that those who hurt me will not live happily for the rest of their lives, because when they hurt innocent people, they never had any pity or guilt. Mrs. Liu was a very decisive woman, just as she neatly broke up the couple back then and forced Ji Boxiao to go abroad. Now that she acted again, Liu Ruyan and I soon dissolved our marriage in the legal sense. I got a lot of money. Although it couldn't be compared with the Liu family's industry, it was enough for an ordinary person to spend 3 lifetimes. And Ji Boxiao, under Mrs. Liu's iron-fisted tactics, the Ji family couldn't withstand the pressure and broke off relations with him and completely cut off his financial source. I heard that he also made a suicide attempt, and Liu Ruyan stayed in the hospital for a day and a night. I also heard that Liu Ruyan was ruthless and insisted on marrying Ji Boxiao. Mrs. Liu was so angry that she gave her 2 slaps and wanted to drive her out of the Liu family, even saying that she would find a way to have another child to inherit the family business, but none of this had anything to do with me. I followed grandmother back to the small county town, thousands of miles away, renovated grandmother's small yard, and planned to plant the yard with grandmother's favorite morning glories next spring. A month later, Liu Ran suddenly found grandmother. She didn't open the yard. She stayed outside for a long time and didn't leave until the early morning. And when I went out to get milk the next morning, I saw her again. She loved beauty very much. Even though it was winter, she only wore a thin coat. But I was wrapped in a bloated down jacket because I was afraid of the cold. You see, we are always like 2 worlds. The neighbors were curiously watching her. She stopped and didn't move forward. After all, it's rare to see such a beautifully dressed and noble woman in our small county. But I only looked at her once and looked away. When I was young, I was attracted by her skin and hid in the crowd without hesitation. But after all, marriage is like drinking water, and you know whether it's cold or warm. I chose my own path and I accepted it. Liu Ruyan didn't speak either, but she followed me all the way. I went to buy breakfast after taking the milk and turned back, and she followed all the way. Until I walked to the yard gate. Li Rui, she finally spoke and called my name. I didn't stop, pushed open the yard gate and turned around to close it. Liu Ruyan stepped forward and reached out to block it. Li Rui Ji Boxiao is getting married next spring. I don't think I've ever lost my temper with anyone since I grew up, and I haven't even had a dispute with anyone. But this time, I suddenly did. The warm milk was splashed on her face. Her expensive coat, silk scarf, jewelry, and makeup were all ruined. She was a little stunned and frowned. Li Rui! Liao Ruyan, if the person who marries him next spring is you, then I'm willing to bless you. Lovers eventually become family, but now it seems you don't love him that much. After all, you can marry him as Mrs. Ji by giving up everything of the Liu family, but you are reluctant to part with it, Li Rui. Those words were actually only half right. She indeed didn't love Ji Boxiao that much anymore, but not because she was reluctant to part with the Liu family's property. She just really didn't like him as much as she did when she was young. After getting pregnant, Liu Ruyan actually thought that the 3 of them would live well. The once despicable thought would be buried in her heart for a lifetime. That year she was out of control and crossed the line with Ji Boxiao in the middle of the night in a foreign country and impulsively gave Ji Boxiao a promise about the child in marriage. But in fact, she regretted it very early. But Ji Boxiao told Li Rui, and then the most gentle and generous Li Rui resolutely killed their child. At the moment she learned that the child was gone, Liu Ruyan only had one thought in her heart. She couldn't keep Li Rui anymore. Just as fireworks fall, they fall. But in their wedding house, Li Rui was everywhere. The servants often blurted out, "What does the master think?" The master likes it. If the master knew, and herself, every time she went home at 6 o'clock, she knew that person had long since left, but she still expected that it was him who came out to greet her. She once thought Li Rui was a cup of plain, constant temperature, 45-degree warm water. An unimportant existence. But how can people live without water? She often thought of their last dinner, the way Li Rui was drunk. Under the light, he was really exceptionally handsome. She often thought that if she went to hold his hand during the walk later, if she hugged him from behind, if she whispered husband, would he soften his heart and give her another chance? She also often thought that if she hadn't missed the appointment in that heavy rain and appeared in front of him in time, would the end of the story have been completely reversed? But it was meaningless to talk about these. She could only tell herself to look forward. Li Rui was still single. Li Rui rejected many pursuers. And Li Rui loved her very, very much back then. She would go to him 2 or 3 times a year. But on the 9th time, she went to find him. The same story happened again, but the heroine in that story was no longer her. That day it rained heavily, just like the time she forgot to pick him up. But this time the heroine had only Li Rui, and her heart and eyes. In the pouring rain, the girl's car stopped steadily in the rain. Rui stood under the eaves to hide from the rain. When he saw the girl getting out of the car with an umbrella, his eyes were full of gentle and peaceful smiles. His gaze was on the girl from beginning to end, and the girl was also looking at him, running towards him urgently. When she stepped up the steps, Rui supported her steadily, and then he took the umbrella from the girl's hand. The umbrella was tilted almost entirely towards the girl beside him, and the girl pushed the umbrella to his head time and time again. They pushed it like this, and in the end, both of them were soaked. But in the heavy rain, the two of them looked at each other and laughed happily. Liu Ruyan sat in the car, looking blankly at that scene. The wipers moved quickly back and forth. The whole world was almost swallowed by the heavy rain. Li Rui's car drove away in time and was no longer seen. And that heavy rain several years ago, that heavy rain where she forgot to pick up Li Rui, fell on her like a pouring basin a long time later. Liu Ruyan smiled miserably. She started the car and turned it around. The car was like a sharp arrow that broke through the dense clouds. At a certain moment, she seemed to see a person who was still young. At that time, they had just got engaged. Her mother didn't like him very much, but her grandmother liked him very much during her lifetime. When they got engaged, grandmother had told him, Li Ruyan is very strong. If she bullies you, come and tell grandmother, and grandmother will support you. So at that time, every time he was bullied by her, he would always say, be careful, I'll go and tell grandmother. She couldn't help laughing, and remembered their wedding night.